Right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar series. Today, the topic is digitising your planning, building control or local land charges records during COVID-19. We're pleased to be joined by some of the key members of the TerraQuest team, Jules and Jeff. If you have any questions, pop them in the chat and we'll answer them at the end of the presentation. I'll now pass you on to Jules and hope you enjoy.
Thank you, Jamie. My name is Julius. I'm a business development manager specifically for data capture and digitization service. First of all, I would like to thank each and every one of you today for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and listen to us. I promise we won't take too much of your time. We'll keep it very informative, and hopefully by the end of the session, you'll go away with some very useful insight. As we all know, 2020 has been a very interesting year for most of us, not in a good way. COVID-19 has had a major impact in our personal lives and also on how we work and how we interact with each other, colleagues, and other organizations. Today's webinar is very possible that it would have been a face-to-face discussion at one of our annual planning conferences, but we've lost that human interaction. However, we have to embrace online working as the new norm. And this really sets the tone for today's topics. At TerraQuest, we already work with many local authorities, and we have seen, as a result of COVID-19, more and more staff are having to work from home. And this impacts on how data is accessed, which is fundamental in keeping day-to-day operations running efficiently. My colleague Jeff, who is an expert in this field with over 20 years experience, will be addressing these topics today, enabling remote access to digital data, removing barriers for data migration, and he will also be touching on the services that TerraQuest provide. But before I do that, before we get to that, I think it's very important that I tell you a bit about TerraQuest, who we are, what we do, and the services that we provide. So TerraQuest was formed in 1972. So we are about 18 months away from our 50th anniversary. And our board has promised us a 50% pay rise to mark the 50-year milestone. Jokes aside, when TerraQuest was formed all those 48 years ago, the core service was land referencing, which is basically research into land ownership and rights over land as part of the delivery of infrastructure projects. And we've actually engaged with many of you, many local authorities across the UK in delivering our land referencing services for town regeneration, rail projects, road improvement schemes, and many other projects, including utilities as well. We currently work on HS2, Crossrail, and many other infrastructure projects. So the natural progression really was to diversify into other data services and technology solutions using TerraQuest's internal capabilities and strength through our people and innovation. So we started the digitization service about 25 years ago. We also offer the planning application validation service, which is also known as PAVS. And we did a webinar 2 weeks ago on this particular service. Some of you may have attended that because it's also linked to planning. Another service, PAVS is another service where we help many local authorities in the UK to clear a huge backlog as a result of COVID-19. So again, that COVID-19 is really impacting many services. In 2015, we were appointed by the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government to run the planning portal, which processed over 90% of planning applications in England and Wales electronically. And I'm sure most of you are very familiar with planningportal.co.uk. Again, using our people and innovation, this year we were awarded the tender to run a similar portal for Northern Ireland for the next 10 years. So that really shows that at TerraQuest, we live and breathe innovation, which help our clients reduce costs and drive efficiencies. We are also all about collaboration, as we believe in building long-term relationships, building trust with our clients, and guiding them to ensure that they realize long-term benefits in all the services that we offer. Over 80% of our clients we have worked with for at least 5 years, and there's also a big chunk of that who we've been working with for 10 or more years. So collaboration is absolutely key to TerraQuest. Next slide, please, Jamie. We have 224 staff and growing across 6 offices in the UK and Northern Ireland. Our head office is in Birmingham. We also have a scanning and document storage and archive facility also in Birmingham, and we run our planning portal service from our Bristol office. What really makes us stand out is our expertise and the quality we bring to all services that we deliver. Specifically for digitization, we have the experience of dealing with all types of planning, building control, and local land charges documents in terms of prepping and categorizing these documents. And we know that this is of significant importance to ensure high quality. All our services and solutions are accredited to all the key ISO standards. I hope I've given you enough flavor of what TerraQuest is all about. And if you like to know any more about what Jeff is going to talk to you about shortly, or any of the other services which I've touched on, please get in touch. Our contact details will be on the last slide, which we will share with all of you. Now I'll step aside and leave the stage to Jeff. Thank you.
Thanks, Julius. Good afternoon, everyone. Jeff Evans, the head of delivery at TerraQuest. I just want to just run through the next few slides and just talk a bit more specifically about some of the challenges around information management within the current world. So it's always important for local authorities and all organisations to have information at the fingertips and in the right format to maximise the efficiency of the operation, and that's true as ever in COVID-19, where the world has changed quite a bit and people are accessing information in different places and running their business and running their day-to-day working life in completely different ways. So there's a number of steps that we need to consider, and the key things, there are 5 points that I've listed down here of things that I think that we need to address. The first point is making all data available digitally. There are still a number of organisations who have a mixture of paper and digital data sets in support of their processes, be it planning, building control, land charges, land and property, whatever those areas might be. There are some who are completely electronic, completely digital, but more often than not, there are elements of paper still there, and those become very difficult to manage and difficult to access, obviously, in the current climate. So we need to also make sure we make all that data available remotely and give due consideration to the fact that the data needs to be accessed on a variety of different platforms and devices. So information has got to be consumable and publishable so that it can be accessed in all shapes and sizes and across all devices. And we also need to make sure that the information is better structured and accessible, and importantly that it's searchable, so that you can make the most of that information, make that information more powerful if you can get answers to questions immediately, and also that you've got back office systems that are working as they were designed. The data that you feed into them is crucial in making sure that they're working efficiently and they're helping you to work efficiently. So as you know, we've been said data is really, really important and the most important element in all system implementations. We know that, but it's coming very real now in the current environment. And the information that we get through there, maybe not just servicing those particular functions, but we can gather through dashboards. We can gather a lot of information from those data sets and summarize that data, and that's going to provide us with management information that is going to inform much better decision making. And that, I think, that really shouldn't be underestimated as a benefit from digitizing data sets. And also, there's the support for the case for accommodation consolidation. Ourselves as a business, 12 months ago, we were predominantly office-based with a few people working at home, and of course post-March that's completely flipped around the other way now. And I personally don't see that we'll go back to exactly as we were 12 months ago. Working from home, working in those different ways, more flexible working is here to a greater or lesser extent here to stay. And so we as businesses and as local authorities need to consider how we our accommodation strategy and providing freeing up space through removing paper document archives or allowing home working, hot desking, flexible working that might reduce the number of workstations that we need is going to provide us with real insight into how we might think about our accommodation going forward. So those are 5 key points I think that we need to consider. Can I have the next slide, Jamie? Just an example then. So you know, we know a number of local authorities have had their challenges through this period, and there'll be financial challenges still to come, of course. But if you've got an example where you know, but with planning and local land charge, they're daily processes, aren't they? That need servicing. And if you are reliant on paper index cards or paper documents to answer searches or validate and register planning applications, then you need to have access to that data. And in March, April, that means unfortunately during the pandemic for someone to get into the bus, go into the office, sort through, identify cards that are needed, and then scan those, and then make those accessible to everyone who will need access to that in response to that particular service request. So there's a need for efficient management anyway, but during Covid-19 it really just focuses the need to do that, and it becomes urgent because you know, if you've got a complete shutdown and complete access to that information denied, where do you go to fulfill your processes? So there's a number of steps that you can undertake. The first bit, obviously, you've got those paper records that are perhaps a bottleneck. You can scan and index those documents and make those available, so you don't need to keep going in and do that on a case-by-case basis. You can quite quickly digitize those data sets, possibly even replicate the same structure that data we've got in paper in the first instance. It just immediately makes that available on a file share or SharePoint or whatever that might be, so that you're not hampering the use of that process. But then you can take it further from that and then start properly indexing that data to make it searchable and extracting information from the data. So that could be, you know, planning files, decision notices, land charges cards, whatever that might be. That information is important and can be harnessed in electronic format for use by back office processes and even publishing to residents and customers. So once you've got that information, you also probably you'll have your back office systems. I'm sure you'll have your iDocs, Northgate systems that are managing your back office processes, and they may be partially filled with digital data, perhaps going back to a certain period, and then prior to that, you've got some paper documents to supplement that. So you need to create that data, clean that data, and complete a consistent, compliant set of information for use in that system. And once you've done that, you've basically harnessed all the goodness from that paper document, and you've got a safe image copy of it. Then you can securely destroy those cards and get your shred certificate that proves that that's been done correctly. And then you perhaps freed up some accommodation for yourself as well. Okay, next slide. Okay, so there are a number of barriers then that you might be thinking of in going through this process. The key thing, I think, is when all of this is really to build the case. And it always starts with a need. There's a need to do something. So really, that first point is identifying that main area of weakness. Where are the areas of risk? I mean, you have to consider whether a particular document set is fundamental to fulfilling a business process. And if that's the only copy of that data you hold, and if that's in paper form, you don't have a backup. So that's risk to fire or flood or whatever else that might be. And you have to consider what your plan B might be there. So backing that data up, i.e. getting an electronic image of that is the first place you go. And then if you're capturing information, you need to consider about what the needs are. Who needs access to that system and when? The officers will need that information. Those people accessing the systems that it's been used to process it. Perhaps people searching archive information will need that, and also need to consider about sort of the public. Are you going to put that on public access websites and make that information available to residents to self-help and self-serve? But when we're doing that, we need to consider the data security requirements. So we might need to redact some of those documents. As we know, with planning application forms, we might need to redact some signatures, the contact details on there. So what I'd always say is do consider and speak to your security officer, have a conversation about GDPR and undertake a data privacy impact assessment for that particular data set, for that particular process, so that you can understand what the implications are of capturing and might suggest do's and don'ts. And then you would consider other benefits as well. So, there's some non-tangible benefits from having that information that you might make available to members, perhaps, who want access to that information for other purposes, or other departments within the authority who might need that information. But you also need to consider, of course, if you're looking to do this, you might need access to that data while information is being captured. So you need to consider ways in which you'll minimise impact to the authority while these activities are going on. And we tend to perform a scan back service. So any requests for searches come in on a particular day, email those to us. We'll go through the archives, pick out those cards, scan them, prioritise them, send them back to you. So effectively, you get that information back on the same day, probably in the same way as you would from going through and collecting those from the paper archive yourself. So there are ways of getting around that. And we do need to think about about making that case for savings, and that might mean perhaps looking at a larger program of work. So maybe you've got planning history prior to 1990, let's say, that's a key priority, and then some building control applications that is less up to date than that. So by building that program of work, you can certainly generate value for money through greater volume. And importantly, need to consider getting technical expertise to minimise exceptionality, because you can capture data, scan documents, capture data, but what you don't want to be is inundated with questions from people capturing data to understand particular anomalies, because no piece of information is the same. There are exceptions in every case across each data set and within records within each data set. So you need a bit of experience of developing rule bases and understanding the data to be able to answer those questions, and that will effectively minimise a lot of your cost. And procurement route is kind of important as well, because a lot of these cases and under these, it might be that this is an urgent piece of work to do, and procurement is an important part of the process for the local authority to engage with the supplier and get value for money, which is all important. But there are frameworks in which help you achieve that in perhaps a shorter space of time. G-Cloud, for example, is a favourite of ours that we use particularly with local authorities, that enables pre-qualified suppliers to be able to be selected and engaged to kick pieces of work off. So that's worth considering and may not necessarily be a barrier to moving forward. Jamie, sorry, next slide. Okay, so just a little bit about us. So as Julius pointed out earlier on, we've been involved in data capture for local authorities and public sector for years and years, and built up quite a bit of experience. And the key thing, I think, is kind of understanding the data set. So we understand planning applications and the documents that within them, how to structure those documents, why you would index them in a certain way, and the important information that you need to capture from those documents to register in system. As Julia says, we have a planning validation service and a planning officer service. So in a way, we're kind of a virtual planning department of our own. So it's a necessity for us to understand the nature of the data that we're managing. And so that's why we would have, and textual and spatial, I should say, spatial data has been at the heart of what we do for going back to the 70s with land referencing. So GIS data, capturing spatial data is really, really important. and something we understand. And a detailed audit at the start of a process is something we strongly recommend, because every local authority will have a different set of data set. They'll have different target systems that they want to load into, and they'll all come with kind of their unique characteristics. So it's really important to kind of view all the data sets in full and understand what the implications, what the constraints might be with a particular data set, so that we get the best result. And we're also a technology company. We have a house full of developers and architects and business analysts who are working with cutting edge technology, of course, with our work with the planning portal and revision to planning portal, for example. But we're making use of the leading technology to automate elements of data capture through OCR and other technologies, and that really helps to reduce the process of capturing information. So next slide, Jamie. Thank you. So they're just the key steps there: document capture and OCR I've kind of covered. Spatial and textual data again is really important. I think for those in the local land charges area, you'll be thinking towards the land registry conversion, and accurate spatial data is going to be all important, and there'll be very strict requirements on spatial precision and accuracy of your data, as well as textual data as well, and that needs some thought. And in terms of data transformation and migration, so I've already said previously, you've probably got quite a rich set of data, but which is accompanied by paper data sets, and you'll need for that data to be pulled together and consolidate to form a consistent data set. So that might mean you might need to do things to the existing digital data set to migrate that or transform that from one data schema to a second data schema, so that you've got a nice consistent set of data that will be fully searchable and fully managed and get the most efficiency from. And we also have document storage and archiving facility. We've got a warehouse close to us in Birmingham, right near Villa Park, actually, and that allows us to store documents on medium and longer term periods for our customers. But it's also helpful that we can manage some of your archive documents if we're looking to convert some of those. That enables us to pick up data sets from storage, scan them in, scan them out to bring them back to our data center for processing. So again, that just adds to the services that we can offer as part of this process. Document indexing, of course, is all important, as I've said, and again, data cleansing, which I think links back to the data transformation piece above. So if you're looking to capture new data at a set of standards, you want to make sure that all the existing data that you've got also meets those standards, and that might mean correcting spatial data or correcting textual data, and we've got processes to do that, so that you've got an acceptable level of quality for the data that you're creating. Next slide, Jamie. Thank you. Cheers. Okay, so just finally, then there's just some examples of some of the experience that we've got in this area, and that's kind of a mixture of sort of large back scanning capture exercises, and also kind of the Disclosure Scotland element, which is all about forward planning. So 2,500 forms that came in daily, where we're scanning those to 12 page documents and capturing all the information within 24 hours from that information, which is feeding through for disclosure assessment. And that was a lot of handwritten data. So that's got a very sort of high-end, very specific services on top of the other services that we provide for document capture and digital capture. So that's just hopefully giving you a little bit of a flavour, give a bit of food for thought for some of the things that you might be wanting to address, and hopefully some ideas and some solutions to how you might go about them. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Just before we go to questions, I just wanted to just quickly touch on some of a testimonial from one of our a client who we've been working with since 2011. Again, it just shows from what, as I mentioned earlier, collaboration, which is very important in building those relationships with our clients and building trust, and for them to really see the long-term benefit. So Mid Sussex District Council, when we first started working with them, it was scanning and indexing of planning applications. And then lately, we also deal with their building control records as well. And from previous slide, you saw Hillingdon Council. We've been working with them for over 10 years. Most recently, we started working with Exeter City Council back in 2019, and we're looking to continue to build that relationship and to continue to help them with all type of planning applications, local and charges records that they handle. So yeah, I hope, as Jeff said, we've given you enough information there, enough flavor of what TerraQuest is about, removing those barriers and enabling access to digital records, especially in these times of COVID-19, which could continue to go on until next year. So we'll move on to the last slide, please, Jamie. If we have any questions, I think, Jamie, you've been capturing some questions from the audience.
Yep, so we've had about 3 questions. First one, typically, how long do these projects last and how much input is needed from the council?
I mean, the answer to that is it obviously depends on what you're capturing. The kind of initial scan of paper documents can be relatively quick, so that's a matter of just a few weeks of kind of collecting documents, prepping them, scanning them, indexing them, and returning them back in batches. So that's very much your quick win. The capture of data from there, be it textual or spatial data, might be a longer program, and it really depends what you're capturing. But that'll be a few months to do that. Complete that piece of work if you're looking for something like 50 to 100,000 records for full textual spatial data, something like that. But it really depends on the size of that program.
Okay, so next one, do you provide services to upload data into our system?
We do, yes, and we've done a few of those in the last 12 months, where either capturing data or migrating data from a legacy system into a new system where it needs that bit of data cleanse or data transformation. We can do the data load as part of that. We have good relationships with most of the back office suppliers who are able to help us fulfill that for the customers.
Okay, next one, as you offer a virtual planning department and are with the planning portal, do you have your own cloud-based back office system to process planning and building control applications and undertake local searches that could be utilised by local authorities?
We don't actually at the moment, but I think that will be something that would be interesting for us to look at, and that may be something we will consider going forward. That would be a nice thing to see. But currently, no. We in our service utilise the local authorities' existing frameworks and systems, and through remote access, in the same way that planning all officers now are all remotely accessing systems from home. We access the systems from our offices or from our homes to fulfill that service using their own systems. But yeah, that would be something for the future.
Okay, so question for Jules. Do you have any feedback from the people working with customers of Exeter and Mid Sussex Council about the impact of your partnership with them on the service they are providing?
Yeah, from Mid Sussex Council, yes. From Exeter, obviously that's quite a recent relationship. We started working with them from 2019. But yeah, Mid Sussex Council, I've said, is the service we provide has had a very positive impact in terms of the service that they provide to their customers. and hence growing the type of scanning and digitization that we do. So we started with one type of documents, and that's over years that's been growing and growing, and we believe that will be continue to be a very long-term relationship. Obviously, it's been 9 years, and yeah, so that is very, very positive.
Okay, so 2 more questions. I don't know whether I'm saying this right. Do you deal with the digitalisation of microfiche records?
We do, yeah, as part of the service. But and for the larger heavy stuff, we also have a partner who provides additional services for us in that area, so that for us to deal with quite big volumes. But yes, yeah, we can deal with that. Yeah,
similar to the last one. Are you able to capture data from microfiche?
Yeah, so microfiche, microfilm, a variety of formats. I mean, we're very much experienced in providing services covering the kind of land and property planning, building control areas. In terms of scanning, we can do kind of bulk A4 capture, but it's not interesting enough, I think. The more diverse the data sets, older, poor condition data sets, A0, A1, large, different scales, different formats, that's where we tend to be in our own. So yeah, different or legacy archive mechanisms in terms of microfiche, microfilm. Yeah, that's all part of it.
Okay, great. That's all the questions. If there's any more questions, feel free to contact us. If that's it, thank you for joining. I hope you enjoyed it, and look out for our next webinar.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
I think we've got one last question.
Okay. Was it another question?
There was one just at the bottom there from Annette Cox.
Oh yeah, I didn't see that one. Can scanned images be amended or updated?
But to an extent they can be. I mean, with redaction tools and other tools that you can have to amend an image, you can do limited things with them if you want to block out certain pieces. But if you've lost the original image and you wanted to change something dramatically, that becomes a little bit more of a challenge, I'd say.
Okay, I think that's all the questions now. So thank you for joining again, and look out for our next webinar. Bye.
Thank you.